Welcome back to my channel, guys. My name is Raggy Rog, and today I am bringing you a video about the Daedric Princes from Skyrim, or the Elder Scrolls in general. Today, I am actually going to be rating the 17 Daedric Princes. I'm pretty sure there's 17 here. I'm going to be rating the 17 Daedric Princes from the Elder Scrolls series based on my experiences with them in Skyrim and how memorable I think they are. So, as you can see on the list here, we have most memorable, pretty memorable, average, pretty forgettable, and then the most forgettable. So it's pretty straightforward. Some of these you're probably going to be able to guess right away, but otherwise, we're going to get into it a little bit. It's probably going to be kind of hit or miss. I'm going to be basing it just on my experiences in Skyrim, because that is the Elder Scrolls game that I, and you, most likely, have the most experience with. But without further ado, just getting into it in order of how we see them. Azura is the Daedric Prince of, like, the sky and dusk and twilight and all that. She is the Daedric Prince associated with the Azura's Star quest, go figure. So, like, just right out of the gate, I would say pretty average, honestly. Like, I've never forgotten that her quest exists. However, it doesn't hold my interest enough that I look forward to doing it. I have never been like, oh, I gotta go and do the Star quest. So there you go. Boethia. Okay, so Boethia is she's the betrayal Daedra. She's the Daedric Prince of betrayal. She's the one who has you bring a follower that you must sacrifice in order to start her quest, essentially. See, like, okay, that's cool, and when you remember it well, but I often forget that her quest is there. Maybe it's because it's so far out of the way, up in the northeast and that, but, like, it just, I don't know. It's so frequently one of the last quests for the Daedra that I do, and that's not by choice. Then we have Clavicus Vile, and I'm just going to say that Clavicus Vile has one of the most memorable questlines, if only because it features Barbas the Talking Dog. We all remember following him across the countryside, and then going and fighting alongside Barbas. And then we talk to this, like, languid Clavicus Vile, who doesn't seem to give one care in the world whether we live or die, and he wants to make a deal with us. And that's his whole shtick, is he makes insidious deals with people. So there you go. But no, I remember his quest pretty well. In fact, I know a lot of people actually make a point of doing his quest as early as they can to get his mask. So there you go. Then we have Hermaeus Mora, and I'd say pretty memorable. Like, the thing is like, he actually makes, like, 2 appearances after a fashion in Skyrim, where there's the main Daedric quest where you have to get the book, I forget what it's called, but it's the book made of, like, all of the skins of the various elf races in that. But then he also appears as, like, kind of one of the main antagonists of the Dragonborn DLC. And yet, weirdly, he's, like, I often forget that he's, like, a feature. Unless I'm, like, at, like, doing the Dragonborn DLC, I often forget that he's kind of there. And that probably is partly because in his main Daedric quest in the main game, he actually doesn't make an appearance. So there you go. Then we have Hircine, and I'm going to say pretty average. Hircine, like, pretty much identical to Azura, is when you remember him well. But until you're in front of him or, like, hearing about him, you forget that he's a thing. Like, you'll do the Companions questline and they'll casually mention Hircine, and you'll be like, right, because werewolves, right, Hircine, gotcha. Then we have Jiggalag, and I am probably the least familiar with Jiggalag of all of these guys, but he is from, what's it called, the Shimmering Isles? He has a bigger role in Oblivion, I know that, but Jiggalag is meant to be, like, the Daedric Prince of Order, which is, like, opposed to Sheogorath, who is insanity. But yeah, no, I'm going to say that Jiggalag is actually the most forgettable, if only by a Skyrim standard, because you don't really get exposed to him until you, like, dip your toes into, like, some of the, like, expanded content outside of, like, the DLC and the main game. Like, he's not really in it otherwise. Then we have Malakath, and I'm going to say average again. Same reason as the other 2. You do hear about him a lot more. Pretty much, like, every orc you run into mentions Malakath, and like it's weird to me because like for a long time I knew about Malakath, but I didn't know that he was like this orc with like this pose. Like the first time I saw this image, it did not occur to me that what I was looking at was actually a Daedric Prince. So there you go. Mehrunes Dagon is pretty forgettable, and his questline to get the dagger, it's not interesting. I actually put it off if I can. The worst fetch quest in Skyrim probably, and the prize the thing everyone remembers about Mehrunes Dagon. Actually, I believe he actually had a very big role in Oblivion, didn't he? We're gonna move him up to average, because in Oblivion he has such a much bigger role. Correct me if I'm wrong, please do, because I'm remembering things wrong so frequently these days. But otherwise, Mehrunes Dagon, pretty big role in Oblivion, but he really falls to the wayside in Skyrim. So for that reason, I'm just gonna say he's like an average level of memorability, I guess, at least for me. Okay, Mephala. Mephala has to be the most, well, like one of the most forgettable. She is the one associated with the Ebony Blade. She is the Daedric Prince of like lies and murder. She wants you to literally murder people once you get the Ebony Blade. As I understand, that quest in Skyrim was actually meant to be a lot bigger, but they shortened it tremendously for reasons I don't know. But yeah, if only for that reason. Like, if her questline had actually been like the length and size that they wanted it to be, she might be a lot more memorable to me. But as it stands, I always forget about her until I start her questline. Meridia. Y'all know what I'm going to talk about, don't you? Meridia has just got to be one of the most memorable Daedra, if only for her beacon. Everyone laments finding the beacon, because then you have to listen to the long drawn-out cutscene, which fortunately doesn't stop you from moving, but she does have to, like, megaphone speak at you in your head about going to her shrine and helping her clear her sanctuary of all of the vermin inside. And her whole shtick is that she is like a being of light. She does not like the undead, she hates the unholy, and that's why she conscripts you, essentially. But we all remember it. We all remember being taken into the sky and having this, like, light Daedra, like, boom, speak at us. And it's just the most memorable experience, and maybe not in a good way. But there you go. Then Molag Bal. Molag Bal is pretty memorable for a lot of reasons. Molag Bal, as far as I know, has taken center stage in terms of Elder Scrolls. I've never played Elder Scrolls Online, but I understand that everyone's first experience with Elder Scrolls Online is escaping Molag Bal's domain. And in Skyrim, his quest is very memorable, is very cool. He is the Daedra of subjugation. So he likes to make people bend the knee to him, essentially, by means of torture or killing, whatever. He's not a nice person. He is the Daedra of a lot of other terrible things that I am not going to talk about in this video, because that is not safe for YouTube. But there you go. He is definitely very memorable. He has a reputation that precedes him. Then we have Namira. Namira. I'm actually going to say Namira is pretty forgettable, honestly. She has the one questline in Skyrim where you have to lure the priest to her sanctuary and then eat him. Kill him and eat him. And then you get her ring, and you find out that everyone in the Reach is like a cannibal, and it's a big secret. That's cool. Except it's not. But yeah, outside of that, you pretty much just never think of her ever again. And I think that's pretty normal, because like the experience of being forced to cannibalize someone is kind of like not something you want to remember. So there. Then we have Nocturnal. Nocturnal is interesting to me because she like in Skyrim in particular, she doesn't actually have a Daedric questline of her own. She is just affiliated with the Thieves Guild questline, and you do get to meet her there. I'd say pretty memorable. She doesn't stand out like, say, Meridia or Clavicus, and you do have to get pretty far into the Thieves Guild questline to actually see her. But once you do, she stands out well enough that you'll remember her when the time comes. So there you go. Pereite. Okay, Peryite has got to be one of the most forgettable. And again, similar reason to say why Boethia is so forgettable for me, but more so for Peryite, because he's just out there in the middle of the Reach. Like, to start his quest, and then you have to go into like a random Dwarven ruin, a Dwemer ruin, and then it's just such like a one-off quest out in the middle of nowhere. You gotta go. It's a fetch quest too, because you gotta get like niche items to start it. And it's just like, it's such a pain in the ass. I avoid doing it. And the shield that you get, the Spellbreaker shield, I think it's called, it's a pretty good item. It's not worth it. Not if you ask me. But yeah, I so frequently forget that Peryite is even a thing. And you never hear Peryite spoken about outside of that one area in the Reach. Then we have Sanguine. And Sanguine is one of the most memorable. You may not hear about him very frequently, but once you do his quest, especially if you don't have a speechcraft level that's very high, then you gotta do a whole bunch of stuff to go and find this guy. And when you do, it's hilarious. So, I like Sanguine, and it's such a funny, like, that whole quest line, that's something I always say for a rainy day, because it's just like, that's the funniest thing, the having to go and get the goat, and then to go and find your spouse that you married, who's actually like a hag raven. Just, it's such a great quest. I love that quest. Then we got Sheogorath, and he is, without a doubt, the most memorable on this list, and everyone knows him. He's just been the same for as long as the Elder Scrolls has been a thing. He's just insane in the most entertaining way. We like the way he talks, we like the way he moves, just the way he acts and behaves. It is a good portrayal of insanity, albeit probably wrong in a lot of senses, but we like the character, and we learn in Oblivion too, when we do the DLC in that game, that he's not to be trifled with. As far as I know, you can't really fight Sheogorath in Skyrim, but in Oblivion, you can tangle with him, and it never goes well. So, there you go. Lastly on this list, we have Vermina. And Vermina, like so many others on this list, is just the most forgettable. She is the Daedra of dreams and nightmares. So she is the one in Skyrim associated with the Skull of Corruption quest, where you have to go into the place and stop all of the people from Dawnstar from having nightmares by doing the thing with the priest or the mage. It's weird. Like, okay, I've done that quest a dozen times, and I still can't tell you how or why happened. What, like, any of the details. I can't tell you who done it, why, how, where. I barely remembered that it was associated with the Skull of Corruption, so there you go. If only for that reason, she is probably the most forgettable on this list, if not Peryite. I don't know. In any case, everybody, this has been my determinations for how memorable and or forgettable the Daedric Princes of Elder Scrolls are. Most of these determinations were based on Skyrim, but not necessarily, not always. In any case, comment down below which ones you think are the most memorable and why. Am I mistaken or am I totally right? Let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching my video today, Ragamuffins. If you enjoyed the content, then please give the video a like and subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell icon so you can get instant updates anytime there's a future upload, and then you never have to miss out ever again. In any case, thank you again for watching the video. I will see you next time. Have a good one!